Summerlin from Chicago, Illinois. Just wanted to give a huge shout out to the Relay for all the love and support they've given my team and I. And make sure you stay tuned for all the latest boxing news.
Welcome to the motherfucking Relay. We're covering today's top boxing news. Ow!
I do beat Davis. I do. But he's not going to fight anybody outside of Mayweather Promotions, is what Floyd said. So you guys got to stop commenting that Gervonta is just never going to fight. I don't think anybody that you really want him to fight. So let's just kill that right now. Floyd gave that away. Doesn't want to fight. Never did want to fight anybody tough, but it's just not in his nature, I guess.
This might seem like hollow words coming from young Ryan Garcia, who opted out of a fight with Javier Fortuna because he was having a Mariah Carey moment. Ryan Garcia, who says he's got a fight date possibility coming soon, and he's not alone. His stablemate, Jojo Diaz, he says the same thing. He's got a fight date coming soon. Coincidence?
I think not.
Golden Boy Promotions hasn't unveiled anything resembling a fall schedule. So I don't know what's going to happen here. Don't know if they're going to jump into bed with Triller or stay on board with DAZN. I don't know if these two guys are going to fight, though I think that they are. The question is where, when, and on what platform. We'll get to that.
Back to the Davis stuff.
But he's not going to fight anybody outside of Mayweather Promotions, is what Floyd said. So you guys got to stop commenting that Gervonta is just never going to fight. I don't think anybody that you really want him to fight. So let's just kill that right now. Floyd gave that away. Doesn't want to fight. Never did want to fight anybody tough, but it's just not in his nature, I guess.
I reiterate, those words might sound funny coming from Ryan Garcia, of all people, but you know what? Ryan Garcia is making a very valid point. Floyd Mayweather Jr. did say they're not going to be fighting anyone outside of their own stable. They're going to keep everything in-house. It's not their job to make some other company greater. That's what he said. You know, a guy that goes by the name of Fred Garvin.
Who?
He said Tank is almost hitting $5 million at the gate. And these guys going on about what the fans want to see, pretty sure the fans are fine with seeing Tank. To which Leonard Smellerby replied, love him or hate him, he be putting asses in them seats, and it's only going to get bigger and bigger.
Is that why you guys lied about the Leo Santa Cruz numbers?
The pay-per-view buys, you remember?
Huh?
The initial reports indicated that the pay-per-view would top out somewhere at around 225,000 buys. That was the Leo Santa Cruz fight. You fast forward to the Mario Barrios fight.
And they said that fight outperformed the Leo Santa Cruz fight.
But that fight didn't top out at 225,000 buys. No. They said that fight would top out at 215,000 pay-per-view buys. 215, not 225. So if the Barrios fight outperformed the Santa Cruz fight, and the Barrios fight was set to top out at 215,000 buys, what did the Leo Santa Cruz fight really do? It seems that you guys are lying.
You're embellishing how well his pay-per-views are selling.
Somebody is. Somebody's exaggerating, and I can only deduce that they're doing this because of how successful Gervonta Davis is, right?
Right.
Leonard says, one of the biggest accomplishments in our sport is to become a champ, but that doesn't instantly make you a star or an attraction. It's a very long and difficult process. Has nothing to do with becoming a great fighter. I repeat, I'm solely talking about becoming a star attraction. Yeah, we know, because Davis don't want to prove he's a great fighter.
I mean, we can see that.
I mean, that's why you guys match him the way that you match him. An account that goes by the name of Boxing Talk replied by saying, give it a rest. Davis does 200,000 pay-per-view buys. He's not a star. Stop trying to talk it into existence. We want Davis against the best. If he beats the top names, he becomes bigger. So why won't you make them? Because you know Davis stands a high chance of losing.
Bingo.
I mean, Gervonta Davis ain't even following the Mayweather blueprint. No, Mayweather fought the names, the big ones, the Gattys, the De La Hoyas,
He did.
the Mosleys, the Canelo Alvarez's, so on and so forth. That's not the blueprint that Gervonta Davis is following. He's trying to become a star fighting off-brand fighters like Mario Barrios.
Leonard's focus is making Davis an attraction.
Not a great fighter, and he said that himself. So why is it that so many of Gervonta Davis's fans get all bent out of shape when they don't see him on a pound-for-pound list?
Didn't you see what Leonard said?
Can't you see how they're matching this guy? Ruiz, Fonseca, Munoz, a one-legged Gamboa, an off-brand guy in Mario Barrios. They're obviously not trying to mold him into a great fighter because those aren't great opponents.
Leonard's focus is making him a star.
Not a great fighter, and Floyd Mayweather Jr. said it himself that they're not going to match him against anyone outside of his stable. So what's the problem?
What's to be confused about?
They're not trying to fight Josh Taylor, or Teofimo Lopez, or Devin Haney. Hell, I don't even think they want to fight Ryan Garcia anymore.
He's not in their stable, right?
Right. He's not a TMT fighter, and Gervonta Davis only fights TMT and PBC
A
fighters.
few off-brand guys in between.
So I don't understand this. I don't know why Gervonta Davis's own fans are so insistent on tacking his name on to the names of other fighters that they should know he's not going to fight. Moreover, I don't know why so many members of the press, so many members of the media are so insistent asking questions they already know the answers to, covering his events.
It's like everybody's playing dumb.
He's been doing this for years. For years. His career in the matchmaking has been this way. So why would you expect anything different? Why would you expect anything less?
You see these two guys are jerking each other off over his mediocre numbers?
Mediocre! A little bit of uber success he's garnered so far. They're happy with what they're doing. They don't want him to fight his contemporaries like Teofimo and Josh Taylor and Devin Haney, Ryan Garcia, all these guys.
They don't think it's necessary.
And newsflash, it isn't. Gervonta Davis ain't holding no major titles at either 135 or 140 pounds, where his contemporaries campaign. He's not getting in the way of anything, and if he's happy fighting off-brand opponents and selling cheap seats while doing it...
Get a load of this guy. All that flashy shit to fight guys like Barrios.
Give me a break. Gervonta Davis is the very definition of smoke and mirrors.
The definition of a hype job.
Definition of a protected fighter. And if what you're thinking to yourself is that Gervonta Davis being as disliked as he is will bring him the same success that Floyd had, don't forget, Floyd played the heel, he did, but he did it opposite the ring of the big names. The guys like Cotto, the guys like Canelo, the guys like Oscar.
Not a bunch of fucking nobodies.
You can have Leonard Ellerbe talking you up and an army of sycophants online that think you're the greatest thing since sliced bread. You can have little viral videos that go viral on social media.
Still won't get my money.
He hasn't yet, and he's been on pay-per-view 2 times so far. And there are a lot of people out there that feel the same way I do, that until this guy is matched against somebody with a pulse, somebody who can really fight back, somebody with a name, somebody like a Teofimo, or a Devin Haney, or a Josh Taylor, until it's somebody like that opposite the ring of this fucking hype job, he's not getting my money.
I'm not gonna pay you to protect this fighter.
Go on. Fight Rolly Romero later on this year, like we all know you're going to, and see who gives a damn. In other news, per a tweet from Dan Rafael via his sources, Holyfield vs. Belfort event totaled about 150,000 pay-per-view buys between linear and digital platforms, which would make it a massive money loser for Triller. At 150,000, it would gross about 7.5 million from pay-per-view, not remotely close to covering even the purses, not to mention the rest of the expenses.
This is what it's gonna take.
For the Big Tent, the circus, and all of its freak shows to leave town.
They realize there's not a big market for this stuff.
The novelty, as it were, of these novelty acts has all but worn off. If the grim specter of Evander Holyfield tripping over his own feet, being put down by Victor Belfort at 58 going on 59 years old...
Who do you think wants to see this?
I bet when Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr. decided to do that exhibition match, the warm reception that it got from very nostalgic fight fans who grew up watching Mike Tyson and relished the idea of seeing him climb back into the squared circle one more time.
I bet a lot of people thought they struck oil.
Ah, this is a gold mine. Geriatric boxing? Why didn't I think of that?
The irreverence of the card.
The irreverence of Triller as a brand in the sport of boxing. It was novel at first.
It was new.
After a while, it started to seem lazy, haphazard.
Pointless, really.
Jake Paul, who I'm sure the people over there at Triller had a lot of high hopes for, it seemed like they wanted him to be the captain of this ship, and he jumped ship, ran over there to Showtime instead.
And they haven't been the same since.
Jake Paul is gone, Peter Khan is gone, the PR firm that was freelancing for them, EAG, they're gone too. The relationship they tried to have with Jim Lampley as a commentator for Triller That was over before it even started.
I don't know what's going to become of Triller.
As far as boxing goes, I don't know. They could always transition into being something else.
Does that leave their fighters?
Fighters? What do you mean they're fighters? What are you talking about? Michael Hunter? Michael Hunter, who says, all heavyweight showdown November 2nd, opponent coming soon.
He's the only fighter I know they got under
He
contract.
did say he signed a multi-fight deal with them. Who he's going to be fighting, I don't know. The fighters that we'd like to see in there with Michael Hunter, they belong to other stables that have deals with other platforms. So if he's going to be fighting in November, I don't know who against.
It was a bad idea jumping into bed with those guys.
Well, let's not be presumptuous. Let's see how all of this pans out for Michael Hunter. But if I'm being honest, I just don't get the sense that Triller will have any real longevity in the sport of boxing. It really does feel like they're unraveling. They're coming apart at the seams. They don't have any focus, any sense of direction. They came in riding a wave that Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr. created, and it was a niche wave, a novelty act, and it was fine at first.
Now the novelty has worn off.
Moving on. An update to a story we talked about here on the channel approximately 4 weeks ago. Steve Kim had tweeted, talks are taking place at reviving the fight between bantamweight belt holders and fellow Filipinos Nonito Donaire and Jonriel Casimero for a December clash. Cross your fingers and rub your rabbit's feet. We've got some updated information in reference to that by way of Nonito Donaire himself.
It doesn't sound encouraging.
Donaire tweeted, funny that when it comes to contracts, all of a sudden Casimero Jr. starts running scared. Hashtag fake news of Inui. Arum denied last week and refusing to sign just because of VADA. Fool everyone once, but twice shows a pattern. Let me guess. You don't have a printer to print the contract?
Things don't seem to be going very well between Nonito and Jonriel.
2 weeks ago, Jonriel Casimero himself posted this video to his social media.
So ayun guys, next laban natin, magandang laban to next laban, December 11. Naoya Inoue, Ayun, Naoya Inoue, let's go!
We talked about it here on the channel. Jonriel Casimero posted a video that seemed to indicate that he would be facing Naoya Inoue on December 11th, in spite of those previous reports 2 weeks prior that negotiations for a Nonito Donaire fight had resumed.
Nonito's saying it's all bullshit.
Unified Bantamweight champion Naoya Inoue himself inquired as to what the hubbub was all about, to which Nonito Donaire replied, Casimero keeps saying Inoue on December 11th, and Arum said no. Also, that's Loma's date. He only said that after promoter sent contract for me after all of his crap talking. Essentially what Nonito is trying to say is that Jonriel Casimero started running around telling everybody that he was supposed to be fighting Naoya Inoue on the 11th after a contract was sent to him. A contract to fight Nonito Donaire.
So he's looking for a way out.
What Nonito's saying is that the requisite VADA testing that Nonito would require for the fight to go through, Jonriel Casimero is averse to it, and this is the second time that their fight hasn't materialized as a result of that. Now he's gone as far as lying about an Inoue fight that isn't being negotiated, isn't going to happen on December 11th. This is what Nonito Donaire is saying. And you know what? It's a fairly simple situation with Nonito because he's not with a major outfit, he's not with a major promoter, he's not tied to a network. This is a fairly easy situation.
This should be an easy fight to make.
In theory. But I'll tell you what, let's not waste time on clout-chasing Jonriel Casimero anymore. Let's just cut to the chase. If neither one of you guys is going to fight Jonriel Casimero later on this year, why don't you fight each other? Do that rematch. That's what makes the most sense. If the both of you ain't going to fight Jonriel Casimero, you might as well fight each other. Drama in Saitama 2 later on this year.
Because John's just giving you the runaround.
When he's not wasting Nonito Donaire's time, he's name-dropping Inoue for a fight that isn't even being negotiated.
And I said this was going to happen.
At this point, what Jonriel Casimero and his people are doing is attempting to save face. Save face as to not appear problematic.
They don't want to get blamed for fights not happening.
Jonriel Casimero's on PBC's Isolation Island. And it seems like they already screwed the pooch with Nonito Donaire 2 times, at least 2 times now. Naoya Inoue, he's a top-rank fighter. Top-rank, PBC, you know the story, you know how it goes. If he's not gonna fight these 2 guys, he's basically shit out of luck. That's the way that breaks down. And at this point, the only fight to make in the Bantamweight division is Donaire versus Inoue 2. And finally, I'm sure that most of you have heard the news by now. Stephen Fulton and Brandon Figueroa will fight to unify junior featherweight titles on November 27th at the Park MGM Grand in Las Vegas. The fight was originally set for September 18th, but was postponed after Figueroa tested positive for COVID. And, you know, I was confident that the fight would get rescheduled. That's why I wasn't all broken up about it being postponed. This really is one of the better fights the PBC can put on. A unification match between two unbeaten champions that didn't take a year and a day to make. In some instances, more than a year and a day.
Russell versus Santa Cruz, ring a bell?
I don't think much of Brandon Figueroa's boxing acumen, I don't, but I give him credit for accepting this fight.
He could have did what Leo Santa Cruz has been doing for years.
Held the title for ransom, fighting in fights nobody gives a fuck about until he's ultimately fed to someone who the PBC is a little bit more invested in. Brandon could have did that, but he's choosing to unify, and you have to respect that.
Even if you don't like his chances against Fulton.
I don't. I was entertained by Figueroa versus Neri, but I wasn't impressed.
Former unbeaten WBC Super Bantamweight champion Luis Neri,
who was stopped by a body shot in the 7th round of what was a slugfest. Both of these guys were throwing a lot of leather and compromising a lot of defense for offense in doing so. Brandon Figueroa is a very long-rangey guy as far as super bantamweights go. He's tall for this weight, but
he doesn't use it.
He didn't in that fight. He gave up that height to the smaller Luis Neri, banging in the booth, mid-range to inside. Luis Neri, he has since enlisted the aid of Jorge Capetillo, who's going to be working his corner. That's neither here nor there. This is really about Brandon and Stephen Fulton. And like I said, you know, I was entertained by the fight, but I wasn't impressed by it.
Neri versus Figueroa.
You know, I don't got a lot of time for Luis Neri, I don't. And I don't actually ever think he was cut out for super bantamweight. I think he got caught in that uncomfortable situation to where you can't make one weight comfortably, but you're not quite cut out for the other. And that's not the case with Stephen Fulton. He's a naturally bigger guy than Luis Neri. Better boxer, too, I'd say. I saw the Arnold Kagai fight. I saw the Angelo Leo fight. The Angelo Leo fight where he became this division's WBO champion. And I liked what I saw. Like the quality of the work, the tidiness of the punches, the snap on them, the movement. I think he's got what it takes to beat Brandon Figueroa. Brandon, he's a long-rangey guy, long arms, throws wide shots. He's tall for this weight, but he gives up that height. He doesn't actually use it.
That way, he's doing half the work for you.
He's coming off that career best win over Luis Neri. And I don't know if that's an adequate gauge for Brandon Figueroa's punching power, his artillery, when, I reiterate, Luis Neri was small for this weight. He was no defensive wizard. Got in a gunfight, and he was outgunned. But before that, you know, I'd seen Brandon in action, and he never really looked like all that big a puncher to me, not up until he got in there with a guy who moved up from 118 to 122. I think that Stephen is more solid, more durable than Luis Neri. I think he's a better boxer than Luis Neri, and a bigger puncher. Listen, I got nothing against Brandon Figueroa, but just giving it to you straight. It's the only way I know how to give it to you. I like Stephen Fulton to win that fight.